Good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery with Smart Money Alliance and IIMFL. It is a beautiful Wednesday morning, November 18th, 2020. We get together most weekday mornings at this time on this Zoom webinar to talk with our distribution partners. And we have different distribution partners, different roles, but I think today's topic is going to be universally applicable to all. Keep in mind, next week, of course, we have the holiday, so we will not have Zoom webinars on Thursday or Friday of next week. So let's get back to the basics for a few minutes this morning. While we are a 501c3 nonprofit and we do a lot of good things, probably our primary focus is to help small businesses access capital. And pretty much everything else we do is adjacent to that. We have our Access to Capital program that we're looking at on the screen right now. That is a very strong proposition. No upfront cost, guaranteed $100,000 capital raise, and pretty much no minimum participation requirements. Needs to be a US-based business. The owner, at least one of the owners, needs to be a U.S. citizen, needs to be legal industry in nature. But other than those obvious items, it doesn't matter credit scores, how long they've been in business, nor anything like that. This flyer here does a pretty good job, and it's on the IIMFL website. And this is something that can be edited to drive people to your landing page. So we've offered to provide each of you a free landing page. This is an example of one. This happens to be one that's co-branded with a host, but ignore the logo at the top. So a landing page is a very effective way for you to drive in prospects. And so there's a brief YouTube video, but really all we're trying to collect from the prospect is their name, their email, and their phone. And here at the bottom, it lists the highlights again. And submit. When we provide you a landing page, which is free, then all the leads populate to you, they connect to you. And then, of course, you'll be copied when we send them the DocuSign Access to Capital agreement. Then when they execute it, you'll receive an executed copy. So you'll know that your prospect's moving forward. I think there's some confusion of how leads are tracked, and so we're going to dig into that a little bit. First of all, if you just drive people to your landing page, but if they don't fill this out, we don't know who they are, and they're not tracked. Now, we can tell you how many visits you've had to your landing page, but again, if they don't fill out the form here, then we won't know who they are and we won't be able to move forward with them. If you don't have a landing page, then of course, what you can certainly do is take them to the contrarianab.com/funding, which is the Access to Capital page here, and there's the full application. But if you're bringing them here, then we're going to need to get the referred by field, so we know that they came from you, because we won't know that they came from you from this site automatically. But if you bring them through a landing page, then we will know because it's coded specifically to you. Now, another option is you can bring them to the IIMFL website, and then there's the inquiry form at the bottom. And again, they can tell us if they're looking for capital, but the referred by is important. So some of you are having a lot of questions, which is fine, about how do we track these leads? Without a doubt, the best way to track leads is to funnel people in to your landing page. They fill this out, they submit it, or you put it in for them. Now, let's talk strategy for a second. And we have Bill on the phone this morning on the webinar. So let's say Bill has a prospect, and Bill's prospect is named Brian. So Bill can do one of two things. Bill can put in Brian's information here, or Bill can encourage Brian to fill it out himself. Which is a better option? it's always a better option for Bill to have Brian, in this example, his prospect, fill this out, because that has engaged Brian, at least in a very small element. So then when we reach out to him, we can say, hey, Brian, you requested some information about our guaranteed access to capital program with no upfront cost. And Brian would say, oh, yeah, I filled out that form. But if Bill just dropped in Brian's information on this form, we're going to treat it the same, granted, but Brian has had no engagement, may not even remember, and so we have a much lower conversion rate. So with that being said, we frankly don't know if you put their name in or you have them put their own name in, but psychologically, it's a much stronger, we have a much higher probability of close if you have your clients drive them to your landing page and have them put their information in themselves. We have one of you that's gone crazy with submitting in almost 100 deals a day, 100 deals a day, which is crazy. But I can tell the way the prospects are responding that that referral partner is dropping people's names, emails, and phones, because then when we reach out to them, some of them are coming back saying, what's this about? I didn't ask for anything. And so that is not near as effective. Now, it still may work, we'll get them information and open their eyes, but the best case scenario, again, is to have a landing page and then drop their information in. If you don't have their landing page, you certainly can have them fill out the full app here, list you as a referral source, or go to the IIMFL website. Now, some of you are really excited about the incubator, as are we, and the incubator serves a great purpose for early stage businesses that don't have the credibility factors, because with the incubator, as you'll see on here, we're providing a lot of information that helps the small business owner become credible. However, and some of you are doing great just driving people into the incubator. I think there's two schools of thought here. One is don't do that. And this sounds a bit harsh, but instead feed them into the access to capital program, get their information into us one way or the other. We'll onboard them into the access to capital, and it'll become very natural to see that they don't have those things that are needed to be credible, like a commercial address, like a business phone number listed with directory assistance, like a website, not able to produce interim financial statements and so forth. So it becomes just an organic need or an option that is procedural in order. Now, another scenario is be very assertive on the incubator. Where did I go here? Sorry, lost my spot. We could be very assertive on the incubator. Here we go. But if you're going to really do that, what I recommend is let's set up an incubator together. It's considered a joint venture. So now you're making a lot more money for the people that you're feeding into the incubator that you're managing. So is it okay to refer into ours? Yes, we appreciate it. One of you have fed in like 10 clients in the past couple of weeks into the incubator, not just 10 prospects, 10 people that have enrolled into our incubator. But if you see the value in the incubator, what I encourage you to consider is let's develop one collaboratively. You can manage it. We'll provide the infrastructure. You make a lot more money. And we've talked about the incubator before, and even here on the career page, there's some videos that cover some of this, especially this one here, the top one, as we talked about different income roles. So what I want to do is make sure that everyone has clarification in how to submit leads for the access to capital. So we're not really talking about how to create leads. We've talked about that a fair amount, and that's not our topic today. But does anyone have questions in how to submit leads for the access to capital? I'll summarize, and then please type in your Q&A. You can submit in leads by going to the contrarianab.com funding page, which is access to capital, and help them fill out the full application and list yourself as a referral source. So that's option A. Option B is you can bring them to the IIMFL website, go to the bottom, check that they want capital, shorter form, referred by you. And then option C is to feed them into a landing page that's specifically dedicated to you. In either case, we'll get the information, we'll be reaching out to them, we'll be inviting them to participate in the Access to Capital program. So the end result is the same, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that using a landing page is probably preferable. It requires the least amount of upfront information, and it has perfect tracking back to you. There is absolutely zero risk that those leads aren't tracked or linked back to you. All right, so we've got a lot of great minds here on the call, on the webinar. Who has questions about feeding in clients into the Access to Capital? Okay, so on the, so James, thank you for asking. For the free landing page for the Access to Capital, there's really two scenarios. If you bring us a collaborative partner, a key influencer, a church, a chamber, a co-working space, where we're working with them that we've historically called an affinity relationship, of course, we'll put their logo at the top, as you see in this example. It'll be linked to them, and then they can market it out to their sphere of influence. So that's scenario one of how we provide a free landing page for the Access to Capital. The second scenario is if you'll agree to go through the Access to Capital program yourself, James, so that way you understand it from a user's perspective. You've gone through the steps, you've had the mentoring, you've developed a business plan for whatever business that you have put together the personal financial statement, you know how it works. Then if you enroll in the free upfront Access to Capital program, then we'll provide you a landing page. The third, and I said two, there's actually three, is if we form an incubator together, like Barry's on the call, and Barry just launched a new joint incubator with us. We're putting everything together. Once you form an incubator with us, then we'll create landing pages. But at that point, the contact information will be different. It'll be coded to your incubator. Now, an incubator is essentially what we used to call a branch manager, and we do a 50-50 revenue split, so there's more revenue to share. So we're going to provide our incubator / branch managers actually 3 landing pages, one similar to this for the Access to Capital, one for the credit boost, and then the third driving people into the joint incubator. So, James, I think what's important is to figure out who the target audience is that you want to assist, and then make sure we have a really good process in place for you to market and promote leads. But I think that was the answer to your question. All right, so I've got a few more questions regarding the incubator. So if we're going to form an incubator together, let's go over to the page. So we're looking at kind of what we're talking about here. And so if you're not fully familiar with it, you can watch the videos here and see the description. If we're going to set up an incubator together, it's what we used to call a branch office, and there's $250 up front. It's a licensure fee, a business license, $250 payments. We do a 50-50 revenue split with the incubator / branch manager. Our goal through the incubator model is to enroll 100 clients per quarter, 100 clients per quarter. Well, you know that the deposit when someone enrolls in the incubator is $999. Now, you might say, oh, $999, that's too expensive. That's a great deal for all that we're providing. But ignoring the validation of that, if you take $999.99 and multiply that times 100, that generates right at $100,000 for your incubator per quarter. And we split that 50-50. So you're netting 50,000, we're netting 50,000. Not to say that there's no expenses to operate the incubator, of course, but in terms of gross income and then top line net income, it's 50,000 to you per quarter. Of course, there's 4 quarters in the year. So we have a formula where we can set up joint venture incubators, and you're going to make 6 figures and then possibly better through that model. While we can provide a lot of the infrastructure, and while we are a 501c3 nonprofit, we can't do things for free. We have to support our overhead and our costs. So most of the infrastructure needed for the incubator clients, we have turnkey ready, so we can get your incubator up and going and profitable very quickly. But James' question is, what does it cost to get together to start a joint incubator? And the answer is $250, James. Okay, other questions about the incubator. So it looks like Robert's asking, okay, if we form an incubator, then what if people only want the access to capital program? That's fine, because the incubator is going to have the ability to provide a turnkey credibility package for those that need it, but not all small businesses will need that or want that. They may want capital, but they already have their own commercial address. They have their own credibility factors, and that's great. So then the incubator also can enroll people into the access to capital offering. Okay. What other questions do any of you have? Again, we've got Barry and Bill and Brian and Bruce and Charlotte and Kwong and Dion, James, Joseph, Pauline, Robert, and others. What questions do any of you have? All right, so Bruce is asking about location and kind of the logistics of setting up a joint incubator. 2 scenarios. We can form a joint incubator and actually house it at our commercial address. So all the clients that enroll would be enrolling with your incubator, technically not ours, or not our standalone one, and you'd be in the revenue split. So that's fine. So we can provide the commercial address. Now, of course, this could be a Texas address because that's where we're at. Scenario 2 is you come up with your own commercial address somewhere else that you want us to use, and then we can do that. And so either one is acceptable. Don't get caught in the mindset of, oh, well, if I'm in Los Angeles, California, then I need to have an address in Los Angeles, California. It's really not the case at all. The truth is that there are many small businesses that domicile in other states rather than the state in which the owner resides in because of tax benefits or other benefits. Historically, Wyoming, Nevada, and Delaware have been some popular states. Texas has moved up to one of the top states to form a business in because it is business friendly. There's no state income tax. And then other perks that we have by building your incubator within our incubator as an option, not a requirement, is we have access to some specific sources of capital, including Chapman, that's only for a very narrow, specific geographic area because it's tax supported. So if the address of the business isn't within the taxing district of the sponsoring organization, then they're not eligible. So I'm not saying that there's not special funding sources in your area. I don't frankly know. I do know my area. So if we want to set up an incubator together, you can either go secure a commercial location wherever it is that you want, and then that's the commercial address we're going to work off of, or we can just simply plug into the system we have already here. But then it would be a 50-50 revenue model, which is very lucrative as we've described. All right, so Joseph has a question. If you're already a branch manager, then yes, we plead with you, let's set up an incubator, because let's talk about the evolution of the branch for a minute. So it started out, our concept pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, was to set up physical branch offices across the country. So we started that process, And then people started to ask, well, do I really have to have a brick and mortar office like a Edward Jones or a State Farm? Can it just be more virtual? And at first we said no. And then the pandemic hit and everyone's working. A lot of people are working from home and working remotely. It's like, well, we probably overreacted to that. So fine. You don't have to have a physical office. We can have a virtual office. And so then as we kept working through the course of the year, we were running into so many small businesses that were not credible. Now, I'm not saying the business owner is not credible. I'm saying that the business wasn't set up credibly. And so, and we face it pretty much on a daily basis. Either their business isn't set up properly with the Secretary of State, all the addresses don't match, including with the federal government. They don't have a unique commercial address. They don't have a business phone number listed with directory assistance. They don't have a website, or they're using Gmail or Yahoo, or more of a personal email than a commercial email. They're not able to produce financial statements. All these things, their business isn't positioned to build business credit off the EIN. So again, there's two scenarios for a client. If they're not, well, three scenarios. If they're not credible in these areas, they can either just ignore that, and we'll have to work around that and pursue sources of capital that don't care about those credibility factors. So that's option one for a client. Option two is they can go fix all of this individually on their own, with our guidance and support, but on their own. Or the third is you and I can start an incubator together and plug them in and provide it turnkey. Now, all of a sudden, they're getting all this for free. Now, there's a fee for the incubator participation, but they're not paying for the filing with the Secretary of State. They're not paying for an address. They're not paying for a business phone number. They're not paying for a website. They're not paying for QuickBooks. That's all provided at no cost to them. So hopefully that helped. So Joseph, in summary, yes, we would love for all of our existing branch managers to get engaged, and let's do a joint incubator. Absolutely. So just schedule a call and we'll get that going. And yeah, the question is on the branch office or the incubator license fee. It used to be $100,000, and then that got cut down to $50,000, and then we added in $25,000 of working capital that goes back to you, the branch manager, the incubator manager. So the net cost really is $25,000, but that's not paid up front. We have 0% financing set up for that. So again, it's payments of $250. And so it's not free, and it probably shouldn't be free, because if you're generating hundreds of thousands of dollars by running an incubator, I don't know that it's unreasonable to pay a very meager fee to support the infrastructure so we can make that happen. But that's the answer to your question, Joseph. Who else has questions from as simple as how to submit in leads properly, which we were talking about, or even what we're talking about, I guess most recently, is working together to set up a small business virtual incubator. I think many of you, if you think logically, maybe sit down with a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle and put pros on the left and cons on the right, and list the pros and cons of us working together to set up a joint virtual incubator. I think you're going to be able to find that there's a whole lot more pros than cons. Why? There's so much need. There's so many small businesses that want to need capital, but they don't have the credibility factors. So do they have to come through your incubator to have the credibility factors we've been talking about? Of course not. But is that a convenient and affordable and efficient way for them to get all those credibility factors? It sure is. And are they going to be able to have have confidence that they're going to be able to raise at least $100,000 by going through your incubator? Absolutely. Thirdly, are you going to make significant money by running an incubator? Sure, we're doing a 50-50 split off the incubator fees. Number two, you're making 3% of their capital raise. Number three, you're writing the key person policy if you're licensed, and it goes on and on. So if you can come up with some reasons why it doesn't make sense to collaborate on an incubator, then you'd put that over on the right-hand side. Now, I know that all of you are sophisticated enough that you're not going to say, well, it's not free. Well, most things in life aren't free if there's value. And you got to realize we're putting a lot of investment into your incubator. We're bringing the turnkey infrastructure so we can make this happen. And we're not asking you to really have anything out of pocket other than $250. The incubator will support itself. We're financing the license fee, and the license fee is financed at 0% interest with guaranteed approval. Okay, so let's get to any other questions that any of you have regarding, again, the two topics I didn't plan to cover two, but one of which is, do you understand how to properly submit in a lead for the Access to Capital program, preferably into your landing page, but we talked about other options. And then we ended up talking about, which I didn't plan on, the value of running an incubator together. And yes, Robert, yeah, you're right. So what questions do any of you have about the material that we covered today? Do you have absolute confidence in knowing how to submit in leads, the Access to Capital program, lucrative for you, no cost, upfront cost to the participant, guaranteed capital raise? And then secondly, any questions on working together to set up an incubator? Any questions? Any questions? All right. Well, thanks everyone. We'll get after it. We'll be back tomorrow morning. So through this week, we'll have normal 8 o'clock Zooms. Next week, only Monday through Wednesday, because we will not have them on Thursday or Friday because of the Thanksgiving holiday. Thanks everyone. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.